All right, you ready?
Mate, I was born ready.
Flag pie's back on the menu. Umpire chaos. Sam Butler becomes a hero, and Josh Treacy proves that some forwards can't be defenders. It is the Code Sports AFL show. We're back for another week, and the finals are kicking off. My name is Josh Barnes. I've got Ed Burke, and Lauren Woods joined us as a third person on our episode. Welcome, Lauren.
Glorious to be on the couch. I've got the Code hoodie in tow, so I'm well and truly coming back if there's merch involved.
And Ed, it's a big week for you. We'll get to that later, but how are you feeling? We'll talk about your big grand final at the end of the show.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Huge week for the St Mary's Salesian Football Club. Also a huge week for a few of our AFL teams too. But we'll get to that.
Don't worry about that. Before we get to the finals, it's time for the first bounce. It's rule changes season. This time of the year, we're always into that. The first imprint on the game from the new footy boss is potentially a last disposal out of bounds rule. What do you guys firstly think of that? We'll keep that quick. What do you think, Lauren?
I don't mind it. I think it's worked.
Lasso. We
see the big lasso in the AFLW, of course. It's worked in the Sandful. Talk to people over in Adelaide. They absolutely love it, obviously between the arcs. So, I don't know. I quite like Swanee actually just giving something a go, to be honest.
One thing that caught my eye in John Ralph's report for us was that if a player sits back and waits for the ball to leave, go past the boundary line because the other team's kicked it and it's on course to head out, the umpire can pull it back and say, nah, you were waiting for the ball. We're not going to give you the free kick. So there are still some, trying to remove the ambiguity a little bit, but that throws something else into the mix that could be interesting at times.
Yeah, how deliberate is a deliberate pulling up short to not touch the ball as it goes out? That'll be interesting. The intent behind that will be something to watch. Rules are on the agenda. We thought about rules and what ones we could add in. Lauren, you're a big fan of posters coming off and coming back into play.
Yeah, I think
is
so.
Is that an old waffle rule?
It's not quite Michael Warner's 18-metre goal square territory from a few years back, which I know was floated at one stage. But I quite like the idea of quickening up the game a little bit. Now, I'm not in the camp of cutting quarters significantly, but I like that sort of notion. I think the poster is probably a quick and easy fix, a little bit like the ruck, the quick throw up, that could potentially, just achieve that little sort of shave off of what's been the real drift in quarter length growing. I think particularly when we get to this time of the season, and not to liken it back to AFLW all the time, but you go from covering those games that are sort of 16-minute quarters with a bit of time on, and geez, then you come to a men's game and by God, does it feel long. Yeah. So I think in this era, every sport's trying to do it. I think that'd be just a quick and easy one to keep the game flowing and the excitement to see if it's going to go through or bounce back in. But I don't know. We were talking in the office before, Josh. I don't think you necessarily agree.
Well, and yeah, before we get to my opinion, what do you think about the ball shaving the post and going through and still being a goal? I think Eddie Maguire's raised that over the years, that if it hits the post and still goes through, that saves us looking up whether it's slightly touched the post and we have to go to snicker.
No, I'm having a bit each way here because I would still allow that to be a goal. And it's an interesting argument, isn't it, from Eddie, who's been such a big advocate for things like the ball tracking technology, which we obviously have in the W at the moment, which I think we're all assuming is a precursor to the men's. If we've got this technology at our disposal, it's realistically only going to get better. So a quick shave through and a goal, happy to allow it, but a poster coming back in, this is as someone, of course, who's never actually played a game in their life and don't know what that scramble would be like. I think as a viewer, I think it'd be only a good addition.
We finally got that technology as well. This is the first week we've had access to the high-res camera, and it made a pretty strong start. Yeah. So I think now that we've got that, we maybe don't need the shaving the post and going through for a goal.
Yeah, I don't hate the ball coming back in and its play on. I think that's okay. That'll be fun. I think that's a good rule. But I think the idea of the ball hitting the post and going through and just being decided as a goal is just ridiculous. So I think we start losing parts of our game that we love once we start doing that sort of stuff, which potentially we have been over and over again with the bounce and all that sort of stuff. I just don't like losing parts of footy. Ed, you are all over the rucks in this situation.
I want a ruck free-for-all next season. Just get rid of...
No nomination.
Get rid of some of the rules. No nomination. Bring back third man up. I want to see Matt Rao getting in the path of Tim English, blocking his run at the ball. Apologies to any of the teams who might have invested heavily in ruckman recently. I can't think of anyone in particular. But
no Bayside teams, definitely.
No, I think they might be in a difficult spot if that happens. But Greg Swan's having a look at centre bounces and maybe stopping the ruckman from running over that line, bring back the line in the middle of the centre square for them to run over. I think just get rid of some of these contact rules. Half the time, we saw there was a Melbourne-Sydney game a couple of months ago where Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy, there was about 4 free kicks paid at boundary throw-ins, and on every occasion they both went back expecting to be given the free kick because they had no idea what was going to be paid. So the more that we can just let the two rucks go at it rather than paying little finicky free kicks would be a big plus.
And please, on that, not to cut you off, Josh, but just throw the ball up. Umpires, I know you watch this, just throw it up. Stop waiting around. I mean, you play at the local level. We all stand there on a Saturday afternoon and this stuff trickles down. I cannot stand waiting for a ruckman to run from the other end of the ground to nominate for the ruck contest. It's just a waste of time.
The ruck's stuck in the back pocket and you have to wait for him to jog all the way down. They never run that fast. Like, it's just a waste of everyone's time. I'm onto the rucks as well. I would get rid of the circle, to be honest, and just have them charging at each other like in the old days. I think we missed those. The Clark Keating running from 20 metres away to charge each other ruck. We got a bit scared about knees on knees and that sort of thing, but nobody jumps as it is right now. So
and then maybe
let big long run ups, I say.
Let the bounce go anywhere, potentially, if you're getting rid of the circle as well.
I would keep the bounce and get rid of the recalls and just make it more chaotic. I think we're playing with oval football, trying to make it play like a round ball. It's just never going to work. And I don't really understand also, I'm going on more of a tangent here, but why we start tailoring rules to help umpires, I don't really get. We've decided we need to get rid of the bounce because it helps them avoid back injuries. Part of the discussion about this last disposal rule, which I don't hate as a rule, but part of that is helping umpires so they don't have to make deliberate calls. Why are we helping the umpires? Why are we making the game easier for them instead of making it a better game?
I will make a case against your point on that one. Only because, like, we just need umpires in the game, right? Yeah. Like, I've had days at the local footy where, you know, you're the fourth match of the day at 4:30 and you've got an umpire that is your third game for the day because it's just this incredible shortage. I know the great Sam Landsberger's reporting around female umpires who are driven away from the game. I think in this climate that we've got at the moment, and it may shift in years to come if we do end up with an influx. I know there's been different levers that the AFL has tried to pull over the years in terms of umpire participation. But I'm the opposite to you, Barnesy. I think anything that we can do to make umpiring easier, make it more appealing to wider groups of people. I know we had our first game a few weeks ago with all-female boundary umpires, which is great to see. But anything that we can do to make this incredibly grey game, as you put it before, Ed, just that little bit easier and not put people off being part of it, I reckon we can get behind.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
That's all right.
Not sure if we can have it both ways and criticise them very heavily during the week, but also make it more difficult for them to officiate.
That's a difficult job. We always talk about how hard it is. So I'm sorry
make it harder.
I'm surprised. I'm sorry, but it should be a hard job. That's what it is. Now I could go on, and we probably have for too long. Let's move on to the finals. At the big selection news, Waverley will be Kel Shadir's hamstring injury. He's out of that trip to play Adelaide. Who's coming in for him?
So Mitch Lewis kicked 4 goals in the VFL. The issue that the Hawks face with the balance of their forward line is that Kel Shadir is quite a good ground level pressure sort of player. He's been very low possession since he came back into the team in the second part of the season, but he offers something that is a bit different to Lewis. So whether they want to go back to bring another tall in to keep a similar balance to what they've had, or potentially have another look at Luke Bruce coming in as the sub, because we saw how effective Josh Weddle was when he was thrown forward against the Giants. So that might be something they go for again against the Crows.
It'll be interesting, won't it? I think the Crows have got a lot of thinking to do in that game. I'd love to see Mitch Lewis back in before we move on from the Hawks. And, of course, Jack Ginnivan, your man, Barnesy, he's heading back to Adelaide after that famous journo run-in, of course. But I think from Adelaide's point of view, you know, not only is Isaac Rankin sort of back in contention should they make a grand final, so they've obviously got plenty to play for on a lot of fronts. But I think their sort of key players are the ones that need to lift. I think I had a look at the champion data numbers this morning, and Jordan Dawson, of course, the captain, many argued he should have been the All-Australian captain. Sorry, Jezza. It was his second lowest rated game for the season based on sort of his own performances. So I think he'd be really disappointed with that. You know, he really needs to lift. You know, there's a lot of questions that I think they're going to be asking themselves over the last few days, but I think it's going to be absolutely huge. The crowd over at Adelaide Oval, they're going to be up and about again with Guinea front and square for the Hawks.
Fascinating watch how the crowd reacts to Guineaman and everyone else. So it'll be a real test of their booing capabilities if they remember that Jack Gunston used to play for them. It's been a long, long time. That'll be a real test. So they're booing Billy Frampton on the weekend. So if he's being booed, then maybe they can remember that Jack Gunston refused to go that best and fairest about 15 years ago now.
Or just don't boo. I don't know. I'm not a booer myself. I love a humorous, not abusive sledge over the boundary line. Humour is always key. Never play the man, but just don't boo. I don't know. I don't know if it's that hard.
I think Jack Ginnivan would be disappointed if he wasn't booed. But he has been, probably for the last 12 to 18 months, he's been building like I think he's trying to be a bit of a pantomime villain towards those who live in Adelaide. He was teeing off about nothing to do in the city and that kind of thing. He had to stay indoors, play on his PlayStation when he wasn't there. He's been trying to construct a bit of an anti-Adelaide image. So I think he'd be disappointed if there wasn't a bit of booing. I'm not sure if it was taken in the vein that it was intended to be by the people of Adelaide and Crows supporters, but we'll see how that goes.
If you're the journo that doorstopped him, do you go back again?
A sequel. Well,
Do you put your hand up to go back again, or do you get told to go back again?
I'm not sure I would. I don't know. I've never really thought about it until right this very second when it's come to me in the moment. But I think you'd show your chops if you did.
Yeah, there's been a lot of reviewing, and it's a real chance to make amends for any errors in that initial doorstop. This is your chance to really get back out there, and it would be great for your profile, I would think, if you can go back and nail it. You'd go, wouldn't you?
No, it'd be a difficult one. Just the way he sort of giggled a little bit at the nature of the question.
It's
I don't know if I could cope with
hard
that.
interviewee, I think, in those situations. Quick tips before we move on. Crows, Hawks?
I think Adelaide will pull it together. I think they've had too good a season to drop out in straight sets. That first final will be a helpful experience. I think they can correct the record against the Hawks.
Yeah, I think they will too. Will Day out, Cal Shadir out. I know he hasn't set the world on fire this season, but another target for them potentially up forward. I don't think Adelaide can be that bad again.
Yeah, Crows for me as well, which is a bit boring. So hopefully we have a bit more of a split in the Q Clash or the Pineapple Grapple. Lauren, as you said, you've been going through a lot of numbers. What have you noticed from Brisbane/Gold Coast on who needs to improve for what is the biggest game in Queensland history?
Well, the biggest improver needs to come from the middle for the Lions, and that's Hugh McCluggage. We spoke about Jordan Dawson was his second lowest rated performance. Unfortunately, Hugh McCluggage was completely clamped on the weekend. He was completely shut out of that game.
I think
and it was
Ocean
officially
still in his back pocket at the moment.
I think so, yeah. He's sleeping
Flew back to Brisbane with him, I
firmly
reckon.
next to him in bed. But it was by far his lowest rated performance by his standards that Champion Data collate for the season. He was lowest for disposals. He only had 93 metres gained, and basically, none of his sort of usual involvements there at the coalface. So I think he's the sort of player, particularly with the absence of Lachie Neale and Eric Hipwood now, two such key players for the Lions. He knows now he's really going to have to step up in their absence, doesn't he? So he's one that's really going to need to lead the charge. Kai Lohmann, another, I think, who would have been disappointed with his performance as well. So I think Brisbane, obviously a lot. No, I mean, it goes to without saying it's so cliche to say that there's a lot to play for, but you were saying about Adelaide couldn't potentially need to get it together. Gold Coast, I think, on the other hand, are on the obviously other side of the roller coaster, if you like, in that they were so up for that win against Fremantle. You just worry with a team that hasn't been there before coming up against a team like Brisbane that has gone all the way as recently as last season. I think from a Gold Coast point of view, Sam Collins, he was fantastic. I think it was his highest rated performance for the year, stoic down back. But you just sort of worry, don't you, that are they going to be able to get themselves up again? It's a big travel to Perth. It was a big emotional travel on a few fronts. But, I worry for the Suns whether Dimmer's going to be able to get them up again.
I don't think there'll be any concerns that Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson won't be up for the game, though. They were so impressive against the Dockers. Just the way those two midfields went head-to-head, it was so exciting to watch. And I know that Josh Dunkley has a pretty good record clamping down on Matt Rowell. He's been quite good at negating him. But I just think with those two there crashing in, it's going to be really difficult for the Lions.
They're fascinating this year. The first game, Brisbane's midfield just destroyed Gold Coast and embarrassed them. And then the second game was the opposite. The Gold Coast midfield responded and destroyed them the other way. So it's a real 50-50. Whichever one you believe will go, I guess, into that final. Ed, you were looking at the team before. David Sawyer was everyone's hero coming out of that weekend, but does he play again?
Yeah, so had him out of the team when he missed that short kick to centre half forward. Looks a little slow.
He thought
as
there
well
was no team to play in again next week, I think.
I think he couldn't find someone deep, so he slowed down. It made him look like he didn't have much pace as he was almost getting mowed. But then obviously came good with the kick at the end. I think they can go for that one again, a bit of the emotional lift that it gives them. The other option they've probably got is Jake Rogers, who was omitted last week, but he's someone they can have a look at if they think they need the extra small forward to turn to in the 23. I think Swallow gets another gig.
He's a lever specialist, Dimmer. We know he knows this time of year well. And I know he'll have something up his sleeve, but geez, you're a brave man to change that team, aren't you, from what they achieved on the road. You know, we saw the scenes in the rooms afterwards. It was jubilant, to say the least. You know, all the families in there in the thick of it too. So I think it's a very big risk. As you say, he was such a core player in that win. Now he could potentially get back to Queensland, do it in front of the home state crowd. I think he plays.
Yeah, a lot of questions for Chris Fagan at selection too. Charlie Curran was dreadful. I guess they have to keep him potentially running through the midfield to get him around the ball, and they have to change up their forward line. All three of their tall forwards, Ty Gallup, Logan Morris and Sam Day, were nowhere near it on Friday night. They were completely blanketed by the Cats. I reckon they have to bring in Oscar McInerney and maybe push Darcy Fort forward or rotate that or something, because the way they're setting up now just definitely wasn't working on the weekend. Tips before we move on?
Gold Coast for me. I think they'll be just so bullish after that effort in Perth, and the Lions without Neil and just with those forward issues just look a bit vulnerable to me.
You know what? I was sitting here ready to say Brisbane.
Oh,
but I think I'm
Ed has swayed you.
Go the guava. I think I'm Team Pink for the Gold Coast Suns. Of course, they're wearing that now famous jumper. Yeah, like I think I've totally been swayed by the allure of Ed Burke. When you put it like that, you know, Brisbane completely off the boil. I've tipped them all season for the finals, and it's falling apart at the final hurdle. But you know what? Why not? Let's go. Go
Also,
the guava.
I've been easily seduced by Gold Coast all year. I've been unreasonably excited about them a few times. So I could be going too far that way, but
it's hard not to be. You got Bailey Humphrey, you got Will Powell. You know, like they're easy to get sucked into. And as I say, Dimmer, if there's one thing we know about him and his time at Richmond, there'll be a lovely ace up the sleeve. We've seen the all gas no breaks sort of mentality, the NFL bent on it. He'll have something to pull out on about Thursday or Friday, I think, to really get them going. Yeah,
I saw Noah Anderson was wearing that all gas no breaks T-shirt at the airport. I don't know where we can get one of those to wear on the Code Show next week. That looked great. We'll move into our season reviews. We missed a couple of teams last week. We'll be quick going through these. Just a status update on where teams are at. Western Bulldogs were one of those sides that missed the 9, was the biggest side that missed the 8. Lon, you've been closely following the Bulldogs. Were they just unlucky to finish 9th, or is this an issue for them?
Well, if we sit here next year, they could well and truly still be in, because we could be looking at obviously a final 10 if we get the wild card round off the ground under Greg Swan, which I know he's firmly looking at. I mean, I don't think there's anything unlucky about it, because I think for teams that are around that sort of region, it sort of doesn't come down to the last game, doesn't it? I know that probably sounds a little bit cliche to say it, but it just should never have got to that. You know, there was so much bubbling along in the background all season, which I think you could argue was a distraction at times. But I think you've got a team with Marcus Bontempelli in the middle, kicking it to a forward line that's got Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton in it. I think they'd be left sort of ruining what they've left on the table. They really failed to capitalise there, didn't they, Ed, on what should have been a prime season. You know, they re-signed the coach at a pretty formative time of the season as well. I think I know their VFL program's really strong. They're still in the final, so none of the exit meetings, my understanding, are going to happen until after that. But I think they'll be crying into their Mad Monday beers when it finally happens after the VFL.
It's hard to argue that they weren't the 9th best team in the competition as well, looking at the head-to-head results. They only beat GWS twice, and it just looked as though they weren't up to the scratch. They weren't able to defend the top 8 sides in a way that they needed to. You look at the way that Geelong squeezed Brisbane last week, they just weren't capable of that. So that's what they need to work on. And obviously the big need is a key defender, and they've been linked to the senior guys from Melbourne, Stephen May and Jake Lever. They've made that really bold offer to Callum Wilkie, more than $1 million a year, possibly over 4 years. So don't know whether that will be enough to entice Wilkie, who's probably the next Saints captain, but it's clear that they're going to be aggressive to try and get that lockdown key defender to support Rory Lobb. Yeah, definitely. They need a game plan revamp to be able to stop teams. Obviously, their attacking side was great, but their defence was clearly the worst of those top 9 teams, and that's why they didn't play finals. At the other end, Essendon, not a very good season. Could anything more have gone wrong, Ed? Not really, not on the injury front. Almost every player who had come into the season with a bit of an injury history had recurrences, and it was just awful for Essendon. And then losing Nick Martin to the ACL was horrible too, because that's something that will affect his availability probably for the majority of the home and away season in 2026. And you could argue that he's their second best player behind Zach Merritt. So that's a really tough one to get around, because they probably don't get their best 22, 23 out in the park again until July, August next year. Probably have to wait until after those bye rounds, and a lot of list decisions to make as well, because they've got the bloated list now with the 4 mid-season recruits. They'll probably want to hang on to 2 or 3 of those players. So they've got to cut pretty aggressively when it gets to those decisions in the coming week.
Lauren, if you were one of those Essendon players that we're speculating about will be considering their futures, what would you be doing? How do you take stock of where this club is at and where it's headed and where your career would be going?
Well, I'm assuming you're inferring that I am to adopt the role of one starts with Z, ends with Ac.
May
Merritt.
wear the captain's armband. Yeah.
Could potentially be the one. As we know, like he said that he's staying, but that means nothing in the AFL circles at the moment, does it? I'm a little bit torn on this because I think for someone like him who's been through so much at this club, put up with so much at this club, I wouldn't begrudge him for going at this point, because I think he, as I said, it's been years and years of false dawns at this club for him, and different coaches and different off-field sort of setups and front office and all the rest of it. So I think he could be forgiven for wanting to go, as he sort of hits that it's arguably the prime, probably the back end of his career, and we all know with the market that the way it is, he could do incredible things for his bank balance and set up the rest of his life with a club like Hawthorn, who it sounds like are sniffing around him. But by the same token, I can sort of see the case for the other side when you talk to Essendon people and they say that this was the year that they had to have. This is now the revamp.
They've had a few years they've had to have,
There's been a few of those over the journey, you're not wrong. But, new fitness staff coming in, obviously a lot of change occurring there. And again, it depends what side of the coin you sort of look at. They've been able to blood some of these debutants too. So I guess it's now down to how they're going to sell this, isn't it, in the off-season? You're almost bringing in Melbourne's greatest real estate agent to sort of sell this to the players. But, geez, it's a hard sell, isn't it, at various aspects?
Yeah.
One thing I have seen, and this hasn't come from Zach Merritt or his camp, but it's the narrative that he doesn't owe Essendon anything, doesn't know the club anything. He's given it all to the club. He has a right to look elsewhere. I think
if he wants to leave, they have to let him walk.
I think you do owe something to your club, and you can talk about the long-term contracts that these players are on as well. But just the way that Nat Fyfe spoke about Fremantle after the elimination final last week, he spoke beautifully about what the club meant to him and what they'd given him, and he's been arguably the greatest servant of the Fremantle Dockers. So these clubs are responsible for a player's development. They give them their chance when they draft them. I think he does owe something to the Bombers, even if he has given them a lot over the last 10 or 11 years. So that's not really a reason, I would think, to go. He can just get his pick of where to go next season.
And David Swallow too. I mean, he was the one that stayed when everybody else left. And we know that there has been an exodus at Essendon, even as recently as a short time ago with Sam Draper making it official that he's out the door. I think he could look at players like that. Tom Lynch left. Stephen May left. They all had success. David Swallow stayed, and you know what? The dream is alive. So whether Zach Merritt was watching on Saturday night, like all of us, no fingernails left, to see him salute, to give him a little bit of hope about what could be.
What would Essendon fans give to see Zach Merritt kick the winning point in a final? It's been a long time since they've won a final.
Their left arm, probably.
A 1 point win would be amazing for them, and they'd take anything. A bonus season review, we'll chuck it in our side very quickly. Fremantle, they fell out of the race. Ed, were they just young, or were they letting themselves down?
They're still young. I think that win over the Bulldogs was a clear step forward a couple of weeks ago.
That was basically like a finals win, wasn't it?
Yeah. In the same position last season against Port Adelaide, they really struggled they were so fumbly. Like a lot of their best players were clearly below their best in that game. But with it on the line against the Suns, they fought really hard. I think the last quarter again gives them that blueprint that when they move the ball quickly, go through the corridor, go fast and direct out of their back line, they really intimidate sides and they can move the ball really well. So
Craig McRae likes it.
You'd be shocked if that. Yeah, they've had coaches. I don't think Craig McRae was the only one. I think there's another coach too that mentioned, when they go fast, they're hard to play against. Surely next year that is their default playing style. They're not chipping it to Luke Ryan in a pocket, so they've got someone safe to distribute the ball out of defence. I think they've got to find a quicker, more proactive first option game style.
I think when it goes well, it goes really well, but when it goes badly, it goes so badly, as we saw on Saturday night when Tracy made that move and just they basically just went to water in the moment, and that's really what they've just got to drill, isn't it, over the off season? I know clubs practice this type of thing of every scenario, but it just looked like they were at sea completely. So I know it's a unique situation with Justin Longmuir, but it was certainly another big F for their season as they sit here now, isn't it?
Yeah, disappointing. And with that rolling contract means the pressure will just stay on Justin Longmuir, which is interesting. It seems like he'll be sticking around, but they're going to have to win a final next year, despite our half-final win this year that we were talking about. Quick hands time. You mentioned Sam Draper before, Lauren. He's deciding between Adelaide and Brisbane. I think we all think Brisbane's probably in pole position there for his services after telling Essendon he's leaving. Where would you rather live?
Ooh.
If you're getting paid a good $800,000.
I would say Brisbane, because just weather. I mean, that's an easy answer to give. Great sort of the Felons Brewery bar underneath the Story Bridge. No, I think Brisbane's got a lot going for it.
Humid though, like in Adelaide, you get more of a dry heat, and Sam Draper's got those locks to think about. Like that's got to be something.
Yeah, Glenelg's got that's also got a nice ring to it. Look, if I'm getting 800, if I'm getting your sort of wage, Ed, realistically, you can take your pick of where you live. But no, I'm a Queensland girl at heart. I've lived in Victoria my entire life, but no, I love Queensland. So the pineapple grapple, as you put it, I'm a big pineapple lover. So yeah, I'd be up there.
Right. I think from an off-field perspective, and you revert to what you know, and I'd be leaning Adelaide. I think from a football perspective, he's got Riley O'Brien on the record saying he wouldn't be particularly happy if Draper came over and they had to form some kind of ruck combination. And Brisbane's need for Draper is pretty clear. So I think you might be moving more from a footballing perspective. But Brisbane does have that man-made. I think they're the only city in Australia to have the man-made inner city swimming pool.
Yeah, down at South Bank. It's a
yeah. So that's got to be a bit of a draw card.
Can't surf there though. I know he loves his waves, Draper. So yeah, it's a hell of a decision he's got to make, but obviously leaning towards the Lions by the sounds of it.
Yeah, obviously he's a big tradie beer kind of guy, but I'm more of a Coopers than a Forex man myself, so I'd probably be leaning towards Adelaide in that respect, which leads us into Connor Nash talking about Guinness. I had a good chat with him.
Loved this story. My favourite story of the week.
Yeah, had a chat to him on Monday. This isn't completely an Irish stereotype thing. He was speaking to the Guinness guru a couple of months ago, so he's a genuine Guinness fan. He's brought in a couple of others to get on board. He described through the perfect Guinness pint, which is starting obviously with not having a dirty glass. I thought that was a pretty easy one to knock off, but you have to get domage right, which is a term I hadn't heard for, which is the froth going above the level of the glass. What do you like about Guinness, Ed? What's your thoughts on the black beer?
I agreed strongly with Connor's first tip, which was not to have soap in the glass, because that does affect the flavour. I think he's onto something there. Guinness has gripped Melbourne by storm.
It is crazy right now.
Is it this winter or maybe the winter before? It just took off, and I guess they've got the right taps now, so it doesn't go off.
Yeah, he thinks our Guinness is too cold, which I hadn't thought about before. I did go to Ireland last year, and I didn't notice the temperature was different. It just tasted better over there.
Well, I can't say I've ever tried one, which I can't quite believe after
You've
reading
never had a Guinness?
Well, maybe I'll try one next time I'm on the couch responsibly.
Yeah. Our producer should have brought one in.
Or maybe this can be my time to push my case for an Australia versus Ireland international rules series, men's or women's. I'll take anything, but it's a junket I'm putting my hand up for, and I can make my Guinness debut in Dublin and report back.
Yeah. On a serious note, he did speak, Nash, about how much the Irish influence in W has changed his perspective on the game and the perspective overall. It's been a monstrous influx of Irish women. How much has it changed what we've seen, Lauren, on the W field?
It's
crazy.
huge. I mean, like you look at Hawthorn, they've got a few up forward. It completely changes the way that they play the game. Like teams that have got a heavy Irish influence, they play fast, they play exciting football. Just don't go talking to some of the county coaches over in Ireland because where the AFLW season has moved to, because they don't get paid over there. It's an amateur competition. So naturally the girls, led by the likes of Sarah Rowe, who's been out here for years, they all want to get down here and play. You know, it's a great environment. It's great weather. There's such a massive cohort of them here now. You can see why they're all making the trip over. And, of course, leaving their county crew behind with a few players less. But no, I think it's only good for the competition, and as it only continues to grow, I think we could start with something like Origin for rep footy and maybe move to an international rules in a year or two.
Yeah, you're not a serious team right now in the AFLW if you don't have an Irish dynamo in your forward line who can pinch hit in the midfield. That seems to be the blueprint right now.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you drink responsibly, of course, after that discussion about beers. Most important news of the podcast, Ed, your grand final on Sunday. Talk us through the matchup. Where do you play on the field? We need to know everything.
Big week for the St Mary's Legion, the Saints.
Fantastic.
I was expecting a Superman style.
Could have just ripped it up. We haven't got the code tear-off clothing yet. That merchandise hasn't been released.
Orders are in.
But yeah, it's been a very special year for St Mary's Legion. My first year at the club, and they've been through some tough times in the last few years. So it's
so have you been the difference?
No, I've had a lot of the older people at the club point out that I sort of cherry picked, have kind of swanned in at a time when the club was on the up. It's very funny that the senior men's team has the kind of age profile of an AFL side. The average age is about 22. I haven't really seen anything like it at local level, but it's been extremely fun. It's a great group, and grand finals for the seniors and reserves this weekend, which is a really exciting chance to do something special. And shout out to the women's team who won the flag in extra time last week.
Extra time.
Kicked a point in the last minute to level the scores, and then they got the job done in extra time. So very impressive.
Well, they've set the tone, the girls, so you've got to live up to it. Most importantly, of course, Barnesy, is that our preliminary final footy meeting is at 10:30 Monday morning, just around the corner here in the office. You're playing Sunday. Odds of seeing you, of course, gambling responsibly, in that meeting on Monday. Win or lose.
I think you will see me, whether that is remote or in person.
Will we see? It might be my
seen.
Camera's not working.
Yeah, well, I might just be able to walk in from wherever we finish up on Sunday.
There you go.
We're in a convenient central location here. So
is there a Mad Monday planned?
Bring a change of clothes. No, it's a silly Sunday the week after. So
okay.
Yeah, we can hopefully run into Connor Nash and exchange some tips.
Who are you playing against?
We're playing the Old Yarra Cobras in the seniors. The reserves taking on West Brunswick. So very exciting. Had 4 clash. This will be our 4th clash with Old Yarra this season.
Really?
We're currently 2-1, but lost the second semi-final a couple of weeks ago. So came for some revenge.
Yeah, excellent. We'll have a full rundown in next week's Quick Hands. But until then, good luck, Ed. Good luck to you as well, Lauren, for hopefully watching from the couch this weekend. I'll be doing the same. Make sure you tune in and read all of our stuff on Code Sports. We'll be back next week.